Welcome to the Boxing Gossip channel. Please hit subscribe if you are new. Alexander Povetkin versus Christian Hammer. The fight takes place the 15th of December, this Friday in Russia. Good fight in the heavyweight division, and one that we're going to discuss, give a pre-fight breakdown on in this particular video. Christian Hammer, BoxRec have him as the number 10 rated heavyweight in the planet. I think 10 is a little bit generous, but I do believe he deserves to be in that conversation. It's actually hard to exclude Christian Hammer from that conversation, given his resume, and he's actually notched up some fairly decent wins in the context of the modern heavyweight division. So let's talk about those briefly. 2 fights ago, he beat David Price for the WBO European heavyweight title. I was at that fight, and Christian Hammer stopped David Price. Prior to that, he beat Erkan Tepe, the same Erkan Tepe who, whilst on performance-enhancing drugs, iced David Price. Other wins on the resume: Michael Sprott, Sherman Williams, Konstantin Eretz, a win over Kevin Johnson, a win over Leif Larson, a win over 2012 Danny Williams. He does have losses. He lost to Mariusz Wok back in 2010. He lost to a guy I don't know called Taras Bidenko in 2010. And perhaps most famously, he lost to Tyson Fury by a retirement in 2015. But recently, Christian Hammer's been on a good run of form. In fact, he's won 5 on the bounce, with more notable names like Sprott, Tepe and Price amongst that list. So from a resume perspective, he's there or thereabouts. Now don't get me wrong, he's not got an elite resume, he's not got a world-class resume. What you find, in my opinion, is in the heavyweight division, you've got a top 5 or 6 who are quite strong, and then it's much of a muchness outside of that 5 or 6. And for me, Christian Hammer forms part of the much of a muchness outside of that top 5 or 6, but inside the top 20, so he deserves to be in the conversation. Now, I've seen Christian Hammer box several times, obviously against Tyson Fury, obviously against David Price, Tepe, Kevin Johnson, etc. My honest take, and I appreciate this is not the most sophisticated piece of analysis you will ever hear about a fight. My honest take is that Christian Hammer isn't actually very good. My honest take is he's basic, he's plodding, he's limited technically, he doesn't carry a huge amount of power, he isn't the fastest, he isn't the most in shape, he certainly isn't the biggest. I think he's a relatively limited fighter who has been matched exceptionally well and whose career has been a case of fantastic timing. So looking back at his resume, 2013, when he beat Leif Larson, you know, Leif Larson was something of a prospect at the time. His career kind of faded into oblivion after the Christian Hammer loss, but I remember at the time, you know, it was just when I was starting this channel, he was something of a name on the European heavyweight scene, and Christian Hammer beat him. You know, following on from that, a win over Kevin Johnson. Now, I honestly believe an on-form Kevin Johnson technically possibly has the beating of Christian Hammer, but, you know, Hammer caught Kevin Johnson when he was going into journeyman mode, you know, when he was taking a few back-to-back losses, and it was a well-timed fight. The Erkan Tepe fight, you know, that's a fantastic piece of form on paper. You know, he went and beat an undefeated Erkan Tepe who was on a real streak of wins. But we now obviously know that Erkan Tepe was off performance-enhancing drugs, having spent a whole career on them. So was that the same Erkan Tepe Christian Hammer beat, who, you know, amassed those 16 wins in his unbeaten record at the time? And then you've got David Price. You know, David Price, a big name in heavyweight boxing, but fundamentally someone we know falls apart at the seams when the going gets tough. So, you know, my take on Christian Hammer's resume is, yes, he does have those names on his resume, but it's kind of a, you know, it's kind of a product of him being in the right place at the right time, and you know, being well matched. Now he's stepping up to fight Alexander Povetkin, and for me, Povetkin is a different proposition entirely. You know, if you want to see some of the limitations of Christian Hammer, you watch that Tyson Fury fight. You see how little he was compared to Tyson Fury. You see how weak he was from range in terms of jab as Tyson Fury. Look how basic his movement was against Tyson Fury. you know, how slow he is, etc. You know, that was one of Tyson Fury's best performances of his career in, you know, in my book. It may not be the most enthralling fight, but it was a textbook fight. But that kind of shows the limitations of Christian Hammer. Now, Alexander Povetkin is a guy who I think should be rated very, very highly. We've already referred to performance-enhancing drugs in this video. Povetkin is a guy who has had numerous performance-enhancing drugs controversies throughout the course of his career. That's been covered in detail before. That's been covered in detail elsewhere. I'm not intending to go into that in depth in this video. What I will say is Alexander Povetkin is 38 now. Like Christian Hammer, he isn't the biggest of heavyweights out there, but he is certainly part of what I referred to earlier on in the video when I talked about the top 5 or 6, the elite of the heavyweight division. Let me tell you some of this guy's wins. Let's actually start earlier on in his career, because Povetkin has been on the scene for a long time. 2007, Chris Bird. 2008, Eddie Chambers. 2011, Ruslan Chagayev. 2012, Marco Huck. 2014, Manuel Char. 2015, Carlos Takam. 2015, Mike Perez. 2015, Mariusz Wach. 2016, Johan Duhaupas. 2017, Andre Rudenko. You know, this is a guy who is competing at a decent level in the heavyweight division for 10 years. He's a huge hitter. He's got 23 knockouts. He's knocked out guys like Mike Perez, who've never been stopped before. He stopped Mariusz Wach. I think he was the first ever guy to stop Mariusz Wach. Admittedly, that was due to damage rather than a knockout. He iced Manuel Char. He iced Carlos Takam with one punch. You know, this is a big, big hitter. His only loss came against Vladimir Klitschko. And in that fight, Vladimir used a combination of size, distance, and unsportsmanlike conduct with a holding in order to get the win. You know, Christian Hammer is not going to be able to deploy those sort of tactics against Alexander Povetkin. Klitschko arguably set the blueprint on how to beat Povetkin. You know, jab, move, hold, stifle on the inside, but it's going to take a certain kind of fighter with the movement, with the athleticism, with the range, with the jab to repeat that. And, you know, maybe a guy like a Pete Tyson Fury could do that. I don't see Christian Hammer being able to do that. Povetkin, as I see him, is a stalker. He's someone who will walk you down. He's not got the most outrageous lateral movement, but his movement is educated. He slowly builds pressure. He gets the jab to position you into range, to tighten up your defence so he's free to get to work with his power punches. And then he's got some real smart inside game. He can punch to the body well. He's got good hooks. He can shorten up punches well, put an uppercut up the centre. He's a very, very dangerous operator, Povetkin. I know a lot of people will be questioning some of his knockouts due to the performance-enhancing drugs controversies. For my money, regardless of that, Povetkin is a very, very big hitter. He's an accomplished technician. You know, he's an Olympic gold medalist. What Povetkin isn't, when people think of technicians, they kind of think mainly of the sort of jabbing mover type. Povetkin's a technician in a different way. Think more Golovkin than Erislandi Lara. You know, he's someone who's going to hunt you down. He's someone who's going to bring the fight to you. He's someone who's going to look to seek and destroy. Now, Christian Hammer is not a guy who is going to be able to utilise the jab against Alexander Povetkin. They're a similar size. I just think Alexander Povetkin is a lot more educated. I know both have an amateur pedigree. Alexander Povetkin's amateur pedigree is an Olympic gold medalist pedigree. He's far more experienced in terms of the level of competition he's fought in the pros. He's got far better victories. He's a far bigger puncher, and he's the more accomplished set of skills for my reckoning. I see this as a stoppage win for Alexander Povetkin. Christian Hammer, he was iced early on in his career by Mariusz Wach. Wach isn't the biggest puncher in the world. And to be fair, Christian Hammer survived some very, very tough moments against David Price. You know, David Price wasn't a million miles away from stopping Christian Hammer, and Christian Hammer showed real good resilience to get back into that fight and to, survive the rough moments against David Price and spring his own offence. But fundamentally, I do not believe that Alexander Povetkin will gas like David Price gassed. I believe that Alexander Povetkin can put Christian Hammer in that kind of problem. And when he's got him in that kind of problem, I believe Povetkin can build can continue the offense, and can capitalise on the advantage that he's going to have created. I'm going to pick Alexander Povetkin to win this fight by stoppage. I actually think Povetkin may well get Christian Hammer out of there in the first half of the fight. I really do. Hammer isn't the most adept defensively, and I just think Povetkin is a very, very dangerous fighter with real power and real technique. I think the fight can be fought up close, and I think Povetkin will relish that opportunity to get his big punches off. As for Povetkin's well-being, plenty of people pointing out that he's 38 years old, and for a small heavyweight at 38, perhaps he's in the autumn of his career. Prior to making this video, I rewatched his fight with Andre Rudenko, which was July 2017, so not that long ago, 5 months ago. Look, can I tell you confidently, Povetkin is the same man who, was beating Ruslan Chagayev 6 years ago in 2011? Maybe not. But Povetkin still has a lot left in the context of today's heavyweight division. He's one of the elite, and he can take care of business at the Rudenko level, and I believe he can take care of business at the Christian Hammer level. As a side note, this is for the WBA International Heavyweight title. It's for the WBO International Heavyweight title. I believe, according to an article on Boxing Scene, the WBA, the WBA number 1 ranked fighter may be Quendo, and I believe Povetkin is 2 and Hammer is 3. Now, with Quendo potentially fighting Manuel Char for the regular version of the title, this may mean that this fight serves as some sort of an eliminator, bearing in mind it's rank 2 and rank 3, to fight Anthony Joshua. It wouldn't be absolutely ridiculous if the winner of this fight was mandated to fight Anthony Joshua. And frankly, the winner of this fight, if you put the performance-enhancing drug controversies aside, the winner of this fight is probably one of the most deserving of a final eliminator or an eliminator to fight Anthony Joshua. These are two guys who have a serious resume of wins and deserve to be in that conversation. And whoever wins, their resume will get notably stronger by beating the other guy. If Hammer goes out and beats Povetkin, he very much deserves, for my money, he very much deserves that spot. So that's my take on it. It's interesting because there's so much talk at the minute about Joshua fighting a returning Fury, so much talk at the minute about Joshua fighting a Wilder or Joshua fighting a Parker. Alexander Povetkin is kind of the forgotten man of the heavyweight division. He may well be the pick of the bunch. I know he's 38, he probably doesn't have years and years left in the game, but you could comfortably make an argument that Alexander Povetkin has the deepest resume in the heavyweight division. He's probably knocked out a higher class of opponent than Deontay Wilder has. Povetkin is very, very much in that conversation, and he shouldn't be overlooked. Joshua could fight Parker, he could fight Wilder, he could fight Hay, he could fight White, he could fight Fury. At this stage, it may actually be that Alexander Povetkin is one of the most, if not the most, formidable tests out there in the heavyweight division. Let's see how he looks against Christian Hammer. I'm expecting him to do the business. That's my preview on this one. Let me know your thoughts on my commentary. Leave a comment in the section below. If you've enjoyed the content, please hit thumbs up. If you're new, or if you haven't done so before for whatever reason, please press subscribe. Many thanks for tuning in.